Hello and welcome to our Nottingham Forest preview on Claret and Blue. Hello specifically to Sarko in the comments who says, take your time, boys. And my dad who said, bit late, aren't you? Yes, we are a little bit late. Our apologies. We've been very, very busy today. So much so, John, that I don't really feel prepared for this Nottingham Forest match or preview at all. So hopefully you're going to carry us through the next 20 minutes or so. How's things, mate? You okay?
Yeah, sorry we're a bit late. That is my fault. Yeah, I'm doing well. I am looking forward to Saturday. I mean, we've had lots of games in a very short space of time, but that changes a little bit because we obviously play City next week, and there's no midweek game. So this feels like a bit of a chance to sort of, I don't know, maybe end the first part of the festivity fixtures, if that makes sense. Festive fixtures. Sorry. Yeah, if this feels like part one over after the weekend, and we can hit City and then Brighton and then Leicester and then it's done, basically. And I think we've started well, obviously. 3
Yeah.
wins. But as we've just seen, after going 8 games without a win and then winning 3, things change pretty rapidly. So it's important that we continue to build on this momentum. I mentioned a few weeks ago that it's like vital that well, after Chelsea, actually, I said that Villa have to build momentum now because confidence is key in this period of lots of games and a few days, that sort of thing. So we've done that. We now need to continue it. So yeah, Forest, really tricky game, but one which looking forward to. It's like a bit of an acid test, really, these next few games. So yeah, looking forward to see how we compete.
Yeah, I'd say the next 4 are different tests of different magnitudes, I suppose. Obviously, starting with Forest away, who are much better this year than I think even Forest fans would have expected to be. Newcastle on Boxing Day gives me the jitters a little bit. Brighton's going to be tough. Man City, despite their recent form, is still Man City, and that scares me a little bit as well. So different tests in different opponents. We'll stick with Man City though before we get too carried away and talk about the rest of the month. But you're right to almost put it into almost part 1 and part 2. And so far, we've kind of started part 1 pretty well, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly that. We had to, really.
Yeah, true.
The minimum was 6 points in the league from those 2 matches, and then the Champions League. I don't think we had to beat Leipzig. Because I said a few times, if we don't get top 8, it's not the end of the world. But we've proven that we can go to somewhere or go to I wouldn't say a top team in Leipzig. I'd say a side that are more than capable, though. Obviously, they've had a bad Champions League record and they're now out of the competition. But I think everyone can see they're still a good side. They have good players. They were our pot 1 away opponent, if that makes sense. The easiest. Easiest is like a big word, but I'm going into
The least intimidating of pot 1, I would say.
Yeah, and to be fair, I remember we obviously did our little reaction show, and I was pretty disappointed and underwhelmed by it, actually, because we wanted that that kind of big game away from home. And I say that I said it then because I didn't expect us to be in the top 8. So I wanted to have the experiences, not just me, but I mean like the fans and also the players as well, because it's part of the club's growth to compete against these big teams. We did obviously against Bayern Munich, beating them. That was a result that went kind of global, really. That is the Champions League effect. But obviously, when you beat young boys away, no one knows that apart from Villa fans. So it is important that we can have those big moments and experiences. It does help you grow as a club. So that's something I hope we can do in the round of 16, hopefully now, if we can get through Monaco and Celtic with a good amount of points. But yeah, we go into the Forest game full of confidence, and that's the key thing. We didn't have that a few weeks ago. And that Leipzig result just as a kind of a separate in terms of the Champions League that allows us to go to more challenging venues and teams and know that we can compete and get results, because I don't think we've been particularly good away from home in Europe, since last season. But this was the kind of first performance where I actually thought, okay, that was really good. A couple of mistakes aside, it wasn't a 10 out of 10 performance, but it was probably 9 out of 10.
We spoke on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. I don't think it was you, John. It might have been one that I did with Matt about people who create YouTube accounts with funny names to get a reaction, and they've got it. Unai Emery says 20 minutes, 35 minutes at least, lads, no slacking. And Unai works as hard as anybody, of course. I'm sure he'll still be at Bodymore Heath now, working out a game plan for tomorrow. And Gabby Iguanahor says, "Hi, lads, Gabby here, big fan of the podcast. Let's beat Forest on the weekend, up the Villa." Yeah, now Unai Emery and Gabby Iguanahor talking to each other in the live chat. So enjoy that bizarre scenario. Let's stick with Forest, John. Stop talking about the Champions League and the presser that you've been to this afternoon with Unai Emery. Kind of key takeaways, things that you found interesting?
Nothing out of the ordinary, to be perfectly honest with you. He gave a lot of respect to Nottingham Forest.
Yes, yeah.
He was asked about Ollie Watkins, not just his injury. So I'll get onto that later because we do have segments of this show, but more so about how he's had no pre-season. Watkins basically did an interview early this week, or yesterday even, saying that he didn't have a pre-season, as we know, and that he was playing with an injury over the summer in the Euros, which he didn't want to miss the Euros, so he kind of went with it. But clearly, those issues, or those kind of little injury issues, they haven't quite cleared up yet. And this is a player who we know is so, or was so. I don't know, like he didn't get many injuries at all, did he? I think he went like two seasons without an injury. I remember doing a piece a few years ago saying Thomas Frank calls him a machine, or did when he played for Brentford. And you could see that after he joined Villa because he rarely picked up any problems at all. And he's still pretty robust now, but he is missing a couple of matches and also not playing 90 minutes, yes, because Duran is there as well. But clearly he's feeling something and he hasn't been quite on top of his game. And I'm, kind of no critic of Watkins. He said a couple of weeks ago, 7 goals in 14 starts in the league, I think, which is obviously 1 in every other start, which is going to be 1 and 2 goals. 1 goal in every other game, really, which is still a really good record, similar to what he had, obviously, last season. But obviously he's playing through something, and that's a bit frustrating for him. Not having that pre-season was something he hasn't had before in his career, so dealing with that is an issue for him. Emery said something similar as well. So mainly talking about Watkins and how that dynamic is with Duran. I mean, it's nothing that we hadn't heard before. I think having 2 press conferences a week, you're obviously going to be asked very similar things, so nothing that was particularly different. The only other topic that was covered, he was asked about PSR. Emery kind of swerved it completely, though, and basically said that he isn't thinking about transfers yet, and that'll be something that comes on his radar after these 4 matches, obviously against Forest, Newcastle, City and Brighton. So not before the turn of the new year is he going to sit down with Monchi and Vidigani, whether people believe that or not.
I don't.
Make your own mind up. I do see what he's saying, that maybe they'll have like conversations about, this player looks good, or maybe we should do this or that. Obviously more in depth than that, but you get my point. And they are obviously looking at players already. Whether Emery's taking like a massive interest in it, though, like maybe not, and something that they'll properly look at as a 3. Obviously, Damin and Monch will be working already, looking at different things and what they could be doing. But I do believe Emery when he says he's not going to give it too much attention until the start of the window. And like last year, for example, Rodgers, that was quite a. I think it was in the first week of January that Villa played the FA Cup, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously they'd already taken a liking to him, having done their preparation for the match and identified him. But then it wasn't until the end of the month that they actually signed him. So I think it's one of those where they'll be, putting things in place. But ultimately, maybe not until the middle of January will they actually start to put deals together. Obviously, that fully dependent on what the deal is. Different things, everything's different with different agents, clubs, players. It'll all fall into place eventually. But in general, not really expecting too much of a busy January. Obviously, we know that Villa have a tight budget with PSR. We saw that when they tried to bring in Geertruida at the end of the summer, but couldn't do it because Carlos didn't have the flexibility on wages or obviously squad room as well. and Geertruida goes to Leipzig for I think it was about £20 million in the end, which proves how much Villa were up against it, really, because that was something that, wasn't a big deal in the end, and Leipzig obviously got a good fee. I don't think he played particularly well to Geertruida.
I was going to say, yeah.
It's Watkins, but yeah, we'll swap over that one because he was one of the players that I wanted to sign 2 summers ago.
Villa wanted to sign him as well. So they clearly see something in him.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing's changed since the summer. So it's still, we've got to sell to buy. We've got to make room. We've got to make funds available. So yeah, we'll talk about January. We will do some kind of transfer related video in the first week of January potentially, and kind of take a look at Villa's squad and maybe where they can, in our opinion, look at things at least. You mentioned earlier about Emery paying a lot of respect to Forest, which is not surprising. Emery is very respectful of the opposition managers and clubs. What is surprising, though, is Nottingham Forest generally. I said at the top of the show that I don't even think the most ambitious of Forest fans would have put them in this position at this stage of the season. Some of the guys that we speak to for our Forest podcast kind of went for mid-table maybe at the end of the season. Maybe we can get into the top half as like their ambition, which again to some might be, you've been in relegation trouble for a couple of seasons, so to go straight to the top half is, that's going to be some achievement. To be where they are in mid-December is testament to how well they've done this season. That is a surprise. Can I ask you a very, very basic question here, and we'll get on to our team sheet in a bit. Is it a case of stopping Chris Wood, John, and we might have a chance against Forest? My favourite question, the most obvious, stupid. Shall we stop this player and we've got a chance?
Yeah. Well, the kind of the classic reply or response that a manager would say is, "Oh, we have to stop the supply." But the only thing I would say about that is I was speaking to a Forest supporter actually in the press conference today, and they're explaining that strangely, some of the players behind Wood aren't actually playing that well this season, which shocked me. Scared me a little bit as well, because we know what happens then. Just I think looking at it, it's kind of like a Gibbs White, Hudson Odoi, Lang. Are those players that you maybe just expect to playing really well? Apparently, they're not, kind of at their best at the moment, which is surprising. So I think Forest obviously going to be very tough enough to crack. I think they've kept something like 3 clean sheets in the last 4 home matches. I think that's right. And they haven't kept that many or that amount for, I don't know how many matches before then, but it was a lot. So yeah, stopping Wood is obviously going to be key, and that's why I wouldn't be surprised to see Mings come into the team. We'll get onto that in a bit. But I think this is a Forest team that their structure is very important, and the way they play as a team is absolutely crucial. They have some good players, of course, but this is the Premier League. You have to have good players to survive, let alone be mid-table or compete for Europe. So the strength is in their numbers, essentially, the way they operate as a team. So Villa will have to put up a game plan that's going to stop how they want to play, and that is obviously the big task that we come across in any team. But clearly they're doing it very well, and it's full testament to the job that Nuno's doing as well. Like, credit to him. He had a obviously difficult time at Tottenham and didn't end for him well at Wolves. And to be fair, I think after that, that's probably, the writing was on the Wolves a little bit. The writing was on the wall, for Wolves a little bit, that they weren't going to have that success again. I think Bruno Lage did as well as he possibly could. And then, this isn't a Wolves podcast, it's just, I'm going to talk about them though for a little bit. And then they've dropped like a stone ever since. And now the captain's been removed with the armband, and it's all going wrong at Molineux.
Oh, no. Oh, well. It's interesting, Nuno, and I don't want to go into this too much, but he's one of those classic managers that when your club appoints them, you kind of go, oh, it's not quite, you know what I mean? A bit like, oh, is that really what we've got to deal with? That kind of maybe style of football or that kind of reputation. And Forest fans, I know for a fact, felt the same way as well. And obviously they had the Steve Cooper thing, a bit like our Dean Smith, if you like, not doing particularly well for them at the time, but had got them back up to the Premier League. He loved the club, they loved him, that kind of thing, kind of messy separation, I suppose. And in comes Nuno. It's not, what I mean? It's not quite the same, but he's done very well, and again, better than their fans' expectation of him. And in a roundabout way, I don't wish them any luck for this weekend, and I'm not classing this as like a Midlands rival. We all want to see the Midlands do well, so I really don't care. But like Villa, Forest, big clubs, Champions League, European Cup winners, like I like to see any, as long as it doesn't affect Villa too much, I like to see any other club even and around that top 6 than the usual suspects. So even if it was a Crystal Palace or a West Ham or these are clubs I don't really like, but you know what I mean? That's that sense of, it's just something different for a change. And as long as they're not taking positions off Villa, I'm all for it if that, disperses the likes of a Man United or a Tottenham.
Yeah, I'm with you. It is always going to be difficult for these clubs to stay. This is something the Villa are trying to obviously do differently. We've obviously seen lots of clubs, Wolves, as I mentioned earlier, Leicester, West Ham, Newcastle as well. You'd put into that category of teams that have gone into Europe and then dropped out. We've qualified for it 2 years in a row now. I'd like to think we can do it again this season. England looks pretty strong on the old coefficient.
It's going to be 5th place for the Champions League, isn't it? Come on.
I mean,
we can say that, I think.
I know a lot of people said that. Oh, everyone was saying it this time last year, but it's different this year. It's just different.
It is. England are top this year. We were always second, weren't we, in the coefficient last year? England are top by a couple of points. So yeah, it's looking good for England to definitely be in the top 2, which would put 5th as the Champions League. So long way to go, John, in the coefficient table, but it's looking good so far.
And 8th the Conference League as well, as long as no outsider wins the cup competition as well. So 7th could be Europa League, and that would be fantastic. But I'm saying that because it's like, well, I feel like we can definitely finish in the top 7, 6th, maybe 5th, 4th, 3rd, probably not. But 2nd, there's a nice few possibilities for us there.
Yeah,
like one of the days where you have to get top 6, and I always felt, to be honest, a few years ago, I remember saying to someone that I think it was when Villa had just been promoted, and I was looking at the league table and I was thinking, well, Villa have aspirations to get back into Europe, but God, that's going to be difficult if you have to get top 6 if another team gets. And I always thought that 4 teams in the Champions League was too few, considering, not to be like all kind of big about it, but this is the Premier League, the best league in the world, the best teams, and we only have 4 clubs that can get into the Champions League, or maybe one more if you win the Europa League. It just didn't feel right because there was other clubs that, like, no offense, from lower divisions as such. I just felt like something had to change because there was too much or too many teams basically missing out on the big competitions. That's kind of what my view on it was. And even if you had a great season and you finished 8th, you were still like nowhere near the Europa League, really. So that was something I always felt that had to change, and luckily it has. Now we're there, and it feels like nearly half the teams in the league can be playing in Europe. But what's wrong with that? I think that's good. I know that a lot of people criticised it previously, and to be fair, I was very quick to slag off is that a swear? Not really. I think we're fine. Slag off the Conference League, and some of that I do still stand by, but I would now kind of take it in a different way and say, well, actually, European football in general, I think, is just something that they need to had to expand, and maybe that could have just looked like I don't know, more places for the Europa League or something, but instead it's the Conference League. I don't know, like, I'm much kind of less angry about that competition than what I was before. And even if we were to get Conference League this time, May finish back in that competition, I think that some of the rounds that Chelsea are playing are absolute. I think it's a bit of a joke, to be honest. Some of the teams that they're playing, like, again, very like a Premier League biased here. Like, why shouldn't the team who finishes first in Slovakia be playing European football? And they should, that's fine. But at the same time, Chelsea have won that competition. I don't care what anyone says. They're winning it with the second team. I think the closest rival would probably be, I think Legia was second at one point. Heidenheim, the German team, they beat away comfortably. Like, it's a procession, essentially. I think Betis are like struggling in the competition, which is a bit surprising.
You know way more about the Conference League than I do. I couldn't even tell you who was in it, apart from Chelsea. I couldn't care less.
Well, that's kind of yeah. I'm just like sad, really. But the Conference League does look like a bit of a mess, especially because you can't come down. Like, we obviously had Olympiacos come down, Fiorentina come down. Fiorentina are obviously in the Conference League again, so they'll make the final and lose it for a third successive year, no doubt. But that, I think, is a good thing if you're in the competition. But if you're not, it's really boring because you know who's going to win the Conference League, or at least there's one of 3 teams will win it every year. You'll know which ones, I'm sure, and there'll always be a Premier League side that goes far in it if they care about it. In the Europa League, I like the look of this season because those teams, there's some nice traditional clubs in there and a couple of Premier League sides, United and Spurs, Lazio, Bilbao doing well. So that looks like that's nicely done. So the Champions League, the Conference League looks like a bit of a mess. Although I still wouldn't mind just going in it and winning it because we have unfinished business in that competition for sure. And to stop my rambling, we obviously come up against Marinakis club again, and he's had a great year. I think Olympiacos obviously won the Conference League and the was it the Youth League that they won as well? I think. I don't know if you were aware of that. I think they won the UEFA Youth League, which is obviously brilliant for them too. Big kind of, well, I mean, it's obviously under 19 competition, but you get my point. And now Forest are doing fantastic, and now they're getting Edu, so it's pretty exciting for Marinakis. Yeah, I'm not sure where I'm going with that, but just as a side point, he's having a great time.
That's enough of a chat about two competitions Villa aren't in. Should we talk about Ollie Watkins a little bit? Injury update for those listening. Ollie Watkins is the one, isn't he? And we don't need to spend too much time on this. It's the classic Emery line. Villa trained, was it later today, John? It must be, yeah. They'll have trained today since the presser. And if he gets through that, he'll be in the squad. As a gut feeling, whether you kind of read anything into what Emery said or body language or anything like that, or just a general guess, shot in the dark, does Ollie Watkins start tomorrow, do you think?
Yeah, I think he probably does. I did like a predicted 11 earlier today, and I put Duran in. I shouldn't have done it before a press conference, really. But yeah,
sorry, you can do another one now.
Yeah, true. I can just do two and hedge my bets. I think he'll be fine. I don't see there being a big issue here. He's going to train. I'm sure he'll get through it. Then he'll be in the squad. And then Duran, for me, is better coming off the bench. People will say, no, you got to start Duran now. I understand that, but I don't want to have the big kind of debate again. But I was kind of sticking with what I said before. I think if you've got both players, if you break down what they're good at and what they bring, I think that is Watkins starting. And then Duran causing more issues off the bench. I think that's the best way to play those two players, essentially. Right now, anyway. Maybe that changes. Maybe Watkins isn't fully fit. And if so, then maybe Duran starts. But either way, I think this is one of those where previously we'd be really sweating on it and thinking, well, if Watkins isn't starting, what are we going to do? And how are we going to play this? But now it's the case of, okay, bringing Duran. And we know what he's going to bring. The only thing that I would question is what do you have after the hour mark, and that is important for us because we've seen how many goals he's got late on in games, whether to bring us back into matches or to see teams off, and that's something that we then don't have off the bench. We obviously have Watkins, who did well against Southampton in terms of getting opportunities and breaking lines, but obviously the final ball wasn't quite there. So I'm happy with the situation, kind of however we play it. I think that it's one of those where it's kind of a good headache to have, really, for Emery. It's not a situation where we're thinking, for example, out wide, or what do we do there? Is Cash starting again? I mean, and he played well, so not quite the best example, but whether it's like a Bailey or Philogene, that is a bit of an issue because it's like, well, one's out of form, the other one is anyway. So whereas two strikers have full faith in Watkins and Duran is Duran. So, yeah, I think Watkins will probably start though.
Would you describe Watkins as a better system player and Duran as a better kind of, I don't know, instinctive player?
Yeah, exactly. And
that's why it doesn't work. Like Watkins coming off the bench to kind of be, you're playing in a different game state than it is if you start. The defenders are different. There's been moments in the game that you've not been a part of. To come into that, going through the motions isn't the right word, but that suits Watkins better, I think, to be in the game for its entirety, or to start from it and go through the game. I think helps him more. To be thrown into the situation, I'm not sure he works better then, whereas Duran can come on, and I know we've kind of told to get rid of the chaos tag a little bit, but Duran suits that better, to come on and just be a bit of a maverick.
Yeah, that's essentially what I tried to say earlier, but you put it better than me. Duran, I was doing a piece the other day and basically saying that his strengths can sometimes not be kind of a negative for Villa, but what he brings in terms of chaos and unpredictability, that can be a downfall at the same time, in terms of you lose your structure and his teammates don't really know what he's going to be doing either. So it can work one of two ways. And that's why it's better when he comes off the bench, because obviously you're late in a match, depending on how that match looks as well. But when he starts, I think you need a player, especially away from home, like Watkins, who knows the system well and carry out those tactical instructions to a team more often than not. Duran is getting there. It's no kind of slight on him. He turned 21 today and he's got a lot to learn in the game. So I think we all expect him to continue to grow. I have seen in the last few weeks, though, his hold-up play is better. The way he's linking with teammates is better. I've completely forgot that it was part of his goal. But it was a fantastic move just before then when he plays. I think it was a 1-2, or he plays a pass and finds space to open up the chance to then move towards goal and obviously shoot and score. But I remember seeing that that movement and I thought, oh wow, like that's exactly what you want from Duran now. Like I haven't seen that sort of combination and that kind of thought to play the ball and then move into space, not just to run forward or then come to the ball. He moves out wide to vacate an area that I think McGinn took up, or was it Bailey? I'm not too sure. And then the goal came after it, but in my head, I didn't connect the two together. I must have put my head down and then looked up as soon as he struck the ball. So that was, not as good as the goal, because the goal was fantastic, but, it was something that he needs to be applauded for. So I do think tactically he is getting better and linking with his teammates more effectively. And we've seen how rapidly he has progressed in the last year in other parts of his game. If he can do that again to another area of his game, then again we're going to see a player who's going to be pretty scary in the next year or so before he turns 23 potentially. So or 22 even. He's 21 now. So yeah, really kind of a player who's got everything. He just needs to develop some things, but I think we can all see that they're there. And Emery spoke a lot about him in the press conference in the embargo section. So there'll be some quotes out on Birmingham Live later about 10:30, just explaining again about his game, about how he is maturing and how he's a big asset for the club, and one that he's kind of a project he's enjoying. Basically, that's how I get that feeling. And we saw that in the summer. Obviously, that a lot went on, but Emery or Villa anyway, they knew that they had a talent here that they could really nurture. So they've given him an opportunity, and he's definitely paying them back, and certainly made it for some errors on his part over the transfer window. Yeah.
Okay, predicted 11 time now. I think the only talking point here really is the Tara Mings situation. There was a comment early on from Blemenem who said, anything Powell can do, Mings can do better. Do you agree with that?
No, not completely. No, I don't. They're two excellent centre backs, and they're both shine in different areas, shall I say? And we know what they are. It's Powell on the ball is one of the best progressive centre backs in Europe. And then my dog's trying to get in the door. I won't let him in because he's an absolute devil. And Mings is obviously very strong in his defending. It's something which sorry. I can hear his nose. Mings is a very strong player, and this is something that everyone spoke about in his press today, actually, which I forget. Basically what I just said there, Powell's qualities are on the ball, and Mings is a lot stronger in all areas, basically, is what he said. Kind of not hold him back. Well, he didn't say Powell was weak, but I think Mings is particularly strong, isn't he? We know that. Aerial duels in his...
It's not surprising anyone there, is he, with those quotes?
No, physically he's a specimen, isn't he? Whereas Torres is more of a kind of a Rolls Royce of a player, I suppose. But I did say before... I'm not going to try and explain it again because I made a pig's ear of it, but the difference between Mings' ball playing ability and Powell's ball playing ability is it's not a lot, but it's because Powell's one of the best at it, I think. But Mings is still very good for a centre back. But I'd say that there's more of a gap, shall I say, in not quality, but there's a more noticeable gap in their kind of physical attributes. That's wider for me. It's just that Powell is so good at one thing. So yeah, it's something that visually would probably be easier to explain. But yeah, Villa have two fantastic centre backs, and this again, Emery wants to play them both. He's said that before. So there'll be some fresh quotes about that as well, actually, in the morning. Nothing particularly new, but freshly spoken words from Unai from today's press conference that he wants to continue looking to play them both. And that is something that I'd be really excited to see, especially because the structure that we played against Leipzig with the two wing backs essentially hugging the flanks with width, obviously, and then the three centre backs is something that I called for a long time ago, and I wanted actually Kamara to slot in there. But either way, that base of a three, I think, is so important. I mentioned it before about you want a screen, basically, of not only just solid players, but when you're in possession, that's what you build from. And then you have your width, and then you got the ability then to go left or right, to pick holes in the defence, to open a team up. It also allows those forwards to play with more freedom and expression. And I think we saw that again with McGinn and Rodgers playing with Watkins and Duran. They weren't so they didn't have to follow instructions necessarily. When they're on the ball, they can rotate and play together, as we saw for that Duran goal. So, I think it's crucial that we play with that base of three always. I just think it's so important for how we play on the ball and off it as well. If it weren't for a couple of mistakes, we would have kept a clean sheet and won the game 3-0, maybe 4-0. Like we really did play them off the park, Leipzig. So that was really encouraging. So hopefully we can see Mings playing one of those positions. Obviously, that would be in place of Carlos as the middle centre back, and you've got Pau and Konsa. The only thing that I would question is how does that look when we're trying to build up, as in out from a goal kick, essentially, because that would be Mings maybe playing off the right a little bit, depending on how we do it. But that's something for Unai to work out.
Yeah, I'm hopefully not treading on any embargoed lines here at all, because I've not seen anything. But I was about to suggest whether it's not the same 11 exactly, depending on injuries or any knocks in the training that came today, but playing the same way we did against Leipzig, but Mings comes in for Carlos, and however that looks going forward. And for this game specifically, does that system work? No idea. That is one for Unai as well. But in terms of like just getting those players on the pitch together, Mings is here for the physical battle with Chris Wood. Pau Torres can still be there to help build us up going forward, as can Mings as well. I liked Cash and Dean in the roles they played on Tuesday. So whether those players are available to play again or not, we don't know yet because of training today. But if they were, and it wasn't a fatigue thing, I would like to just see the same thing again, basically, because it worked well. So why change it?
Yeah. There's no kind of injury dates that will be coming later. It's just a case of the players have had a recovery session, and they did train earlier today, and Emery basically just said, well, we'll see how they get through it. So there's probably a few. I mean, we saw it a couple of weeks ago. Emery said the same thing about some players may or may not play, depending on how they get through it. And everything was fine, really. So it's one of those. Just know for certain. I don't think he wants to say, "Oh yeah, this is happening," and then it doesn't happen, and then it's like, "Oh, is he re-injured or whatever?" So the only thing I would say is that I wouldn't be surprised if Mings takes Torres' place after everything I just said about him replacing Carlos. I think for this game he may just come in for Torres because
Villa from set pieces, make as many tweaks then.
Yeah, and from set pieces as well. They've obviously got Milenkovic, they've got Murillo, a couple of other players who are dangerous as well, obviously Wood. So I wouldn't be totally shocked to see that, if I'm being honest. Obviously the balance it's like for like, essentially, in terms of how it looks on the pitch. Different attributes, as I say, but I think for this game probably suits Villa better. It's mad to say, really, that's how kind of strong we are in certain positions at the moment, because this time last year I wouldn't think about taking Torres out of the team for anyone. That's because we didn't have anyone, really. We obviously had Longley, who I think did well, to be fair, considering it was just a loan. But Mings gives you something else completely different that we don't have in the team. So yeah, I'd be happy to see Mings come in, and I think it'd give Wood a good match.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about Mings handling Chris Wood in this game. So if that battle goes against us and Chris Wood has the better of Tyrone Mings, there'll be a big disappointment. We've only bought him in specifically for that, and he's not been able to do it. All right, score prediction time to end this show. We have done 35 minutes, John. So we've done what Unai Emery requested of us earlier. Predictions for the last game. I went 5-0 Southampton. You went 3. Obviously, it was 1. We all got the clean sheet, but no points for that. 1 point for the correct outcome. Once again, no correct result for either of us all season. I lead 6-5 come Christmas. What a pathetic segment this is. I've written mine down on a piece of paper. You do yours on your phone. Are you ready, John Townley, to reveal your score prediction? Now, here's a bit more filler for you. Nottingham Forest versus Aston Villa. Saturday, 5:15, 5:30, Sky Sports. You ready? I've run out of filler content.
Yeah, let me... It's live. It's fine. I'm joking. I'm ready.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Oh, I
Oh,
don't know.
very
Drawing,
arty.
bit of drawing on mine while I was waiting for you to join. I've gone 0-1, a 1-0 victory to Aston Villa. You've gone with 1-2, both victory. Then I was surprised by that. I thought you were going to go for the draw.
Yeah, then I realised, obviously, no, I can't put I can't put a draw. We just won 3 games in a row. If we put a draw, that would seem incredibly negative. I'm surprised we've gone with a clean sheet. I'd say that much.
Yeah, I don't really know why. I'm just trying to be different. Our predictions have been what miles off it
Yeah,
all season, so I'm trying something different.
yeah. Don't go with logic. Maybe do go with logic. That's probably the issue. We don't have
Well,
much.
that's true. Yeah, maybe I should be a bit more reasoned instead of just throwing out random scores that I can think of. Just quickly, and I really mean quickly because I'm worried about my camera battery. Would a draw be a good result?
Um,
I think it is.
I don't know about good. I think I won't say good, but I'll say it's like more than it's obviously acceptable a draw away
But is
against
that just
Sheffield United.
because it's Nottingham Forest though, and you badge it
Yeah,
as Forest? If that was Spurs away, who are level with us in the table, you go, well, point there's a good point.
yeah. No, wouldn't that sound silly? Because Spurs are 5 points behind us, and Forest are ahead of us on like goals scored or whatever it is. 1 goal difference actually. But no, I don't think we can put Forest yet in the kind of conversation of a team that will be competing in Europe. Forest could finish 10th. And obviously, it wouldn't be a good result to get a draw away. It would be, again, acceptable. A good result against Forest is winning the match, and be a strong result, of course. Forest's home form hasn't been as impressive as what people
Mm.
may think either. I think they're 12th in the home league table. Does that make sense? I
Yep.
think they've won 3 of their 7 matches. So we're not going to a place which is like completely formidable. Whereas Villa last
Yeah.
season, they were doing well. It was that they win every home game, or at least they did until they played Newcastle in January. Forest are actually better away from home than at home. I think they're 3rd in the away league table, but yeah, 12th at the home league table. If they win, then they go up to like 9th or something. So, yeah, like I don't think it's one of those where Villa can have any kind of trepidation. They've obviously got to have a lot of respect for Forest, but certainly a match that we can win now that we've won 3 in a row.
Yeah.
Newcastle won there, I think, was it 3-1 or 2-1 or 3-0? A lot of different scorelines there, but I think they scored 3 times a few weeks ago. So, yeah, like I wouldn't take a point if you offered me it, but if we got a point, that's acceptable. That's okay. Like there's no, we can't be crying about that. But this is what I was saying a few weeks ago. We do have 4 difficult games. We're going to have to get wins from somewhere. So we have Forest away and Newcastle away. We can win both of those, but the likelihood is that we probably don't. And then obviously have City at home and Brighton at home. Again, we can win both of those, but the likelihood is that maybe we do, but difficult match. City, we don't know what to make of them. They've won 1 in 10, but equally they could beat anyone 4-0. It feels like is that City and have the best manager ever probably. And then Brighton as well, a strong team. That's always going to be a difficult game. We'll have a good record against them, but yeah, 4 really tricky games. So we just need to make. I said before, I'd take 2 wins from the next 4 matches. I think we'd be in a strong position after that, and then you've got Leicester at home. Hopefully, make that 3 out of 5.
It's a good start to 2025. Fixtures look, apart from Arsenal, the fixtures look relatively good for the first 5 or 6 in the Premier League.
Yeah, this is a tough run of 4 games. Like I don't think we'll have a harder run of 4 games. If I'm being totally honest.
Got Spurs and Man United at the back end. I don't know who else we play around then. That would be difficult.
Well, we'll see how the table looks and how it feels. You know what I mean? But this just feels we're playing fifth place in the league, and Forest a good team. Then obviously City not in great form but strong. We've got a St James on Boxing Day, and then Brighton who are flying as well. So you could make an argument this is probably the hardest run of games, or maybe not the hardest, but it is tricky. I don't think it's going to get much harder than this in a run of 4 matches, to be honest. So yeah, we just got to attack it as best as we can, and as I say, if we can take a minimum of 6 points, I think that'll be a good return. We might have a couple of defeats in there, maybe 1, maybe a draw, but I think we've got to look at this as a picture, really.
Yeah, it's the festive period, part 2. I like that. We've kind of navigated part 1 pretty successfully. Let's see how we get on in part 2.
Yeah, and we just got to take stock of where all 4 games really is what I'm trying to say. Like if we lose 1, we can't get too peed off about it. Go to the next one and see what we can do. And then beat Leicester, obviously, at the start of the year. And then obviously it's the FA Cup weekend. So next 4 games really important. Let's not kind of get too worked up if we don't get the results that we want after 2 matches. We could win the 2 after that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, and then the Leicester match and then FA Cup. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty positive about where we are and the next few games, but we do have to put in some really strong performances.
Okay, that's this match preview done. After everything we said now, expect Nottingham Forest 3, Aston Villa 0 to counter everything we've just said. Enjoyed that, John. Thank you very much for joining me as always. And thanks to those who watch along live on YouTube. 40 minutes done. Double the amount of time I thought we'd chat for, but some good conversation in there. I thought we'll see if the comments agree or not. If you listen to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you can get involved in their new comment section or iTunes review. I'll let you go, John, before the dog breaks in. Thanks everyone for watching. No, but I saw you turn around. Thanks everyone for watching or listening to this episode of the Clark Blue Podcast. Me and I don't know who yet will be back for the post-match show tomorrow evening to hopefully discuss big 3 points on the road for Villa. Cheers everyone. We'll catch you tomorrow.